Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Allure of the Poor, sponsored by Detente Wines. This is your host Lori, and today I get to be on remote here at Detente Winery in Paso Robles with Chris Eberle and Trevor Eba. So welcome. And the signs, they're waving because we're actually trying to video this on my iPad. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, tell me about Detente. So first of all, the name.
Well, I guess we could start back in like 2008, where I kind of came up with the concept for a brand. So back then I was the assistant winemaker at Eberle, and I think you were at Eberle at that time as well.
Yeah, I started in 2008 as well.
And, in Paso Robles, there's kind of this, there's sort of this divide, or at least there was back then more so than there is today, where kind of perceived quality versus what quality is actually out there. And so, the West Side had always been perceived to have better quality, but I think it was only perceived quality because of bottle prices and stuff like that. So I got this idea of like East versus West sort of thing. And I'm a little bit of a history buff, so for me, one of the most interesting points in our history, in U.S. history, maybe world history, is the Cold War. And so, that's also an East-West rivalry / divide, whatever. And so, kind of use concepts from the Cold War and imagery from the Cold War. And like you can look at our bottles and you can see like this, not so much war, but like espionage and like all the kind of stuff that was happening during that time. Spying and nuclear threat and all that kind of stuff, Bay of Pigs. So yeah, we incorporate all that stuff in there, and I think it was like 2016, I came to Trevor and I was like, hey man, what do you think of this idea? And he was like, yeah, that's alright.
Yeah, it's alright, whatever.
But we kind of started with just a little bit of Pinot and just sold it to family and friends, and that's how the initial, spark got lit, and from there, obviously, it's developed into this wonderful brand that we have now, which is much more developed than just one SKU of Pinot.
So that's how a lot starts, right? You start making the wine and, your friends and family are like, oh, this is really good. You should do this. But you were really, Chris, you were already really doing it.
We were already doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And, and then you get that little spark in your head. Oh, well, they liked it. Maybe I'll go a little bigger.
Well, and then the name was like, we were trying to come up with ideas for the name, and we finally came up with Detente, but there was a winery, should I say this?
You can.
I say that there was a winery that had our name.
I'll tell you, so did we.
Oh, there's a brand down south that had a label called Detente, but it was like a one or two vintage thing. It wasn't like a full blown brand. So we do have the trademark on Detente,
And their trademark had lapse.
Oh,
They
good timing.
never had one.
Oh, they never did.
Label,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we're the only Detente trademark for wine. So yeah, so there's plenty of other Detentes trademarked for other industries, but not in wine. So
See, you were like, let me check. Let me check if this can come out of my
Well,
mouth
we
or
had to be
not.
really careful.
Yeah.
Like we
For a
settled on
while.
the name, and we're like, oh crap, there's a label down in, I think it's Tinsley that had it.
yeah,
Down
in
south,
Martinez, I
Martinez.
think.
And we're like, oh crap. And so we did a lot of research and then actually called them up. They're like, oh, we're not going to make this anymore. Oh.
And it had been made like over 10 years prior to
2008,
okay.
Yeah,
2009,
it was
that kind of
a while back, so it wasn't
Right.
anything that they sold out in market. I think they said they did it for kind of like their wine club. They actually came up with the idea that they sourced grapes from France and then grapes from California and blended those two together, and that was their Detente, was between actual nations of
Wow.
grape growing
So
regions.
theirs was like an actual like coming together.
Yeah.
Ours is like
Yeah.
divided.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening who don't know what détente means, it's actually a relaxing of strained relations. So that whole east side, west side Paso thing, which is a freeway that divides us.
Yeah.
Thing. Yes, but so we kind of had the same thing with Dresito Wines. We wanted to call it Grey Ghost Cellars.
Oh, okay.
And because Weimaraners are known as Grey Ghosts.
Okay.
So we went through the proper channels and found that there was a Grey Ghost winery in Virginia. And
It's like another country.
Yeah,
It
right?
doesn't even count.
Right? And the thing is that it wasn't even a dog. Apparently there was, during the Civil War, there was a person who was known as the Grey Ghost because he was a double spy. Is that what it's called? Like he was a spy for both.
Double agent.
Double agent.
Yeah.
He was a double agent, so they called him the Grey Ghost. So all of their labels are all Civil War, military, and we're a dog. And so I called them and I said, because we didn't want to go down that route and then get in trouble.
Yeah.
And he was like, nope, absolutely not. We will go after you. I'm like,
Rude.
but we're a dog and you're a war. Why
Well,
you got
and
to
I
do
bet
that?
within maybe 10 years they might be like, oh wait a minute, there's another winery called Grey Ghost.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
And at that point, you don't want to rebrand.
You don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
been through that
Yes,
at
that's-
another winery, and I won't
That
say
is
the names
not
of
a
either
pretty
of the
thing,
wineries,
right.
but it was ugly and it sucked, and it was not a fun thing to be on the receiving end of that trademark dispute.
Yeah, but I'm happy because I think Detente is an awesome name for Paso. I think it is perfect, and I agree. When years ago, I think there was much more of that.
Yeah.
That
I would say
butting
it's not
heads.
so much anymore, but I mean it's still sort of there. I think a lot of more consumers come to town thinking like there's better quality, better wine on the west side, when actually the majority of the fruit grown in Paso is on the east side. But now there's a lot of money going into the east side. We got like Austin Hope, who's producing higher priced wines. We've got J. Lore, Eberle as well. And so I think that divide isn't there as much, but it still works with the brand.
It does. It does. I like it, and even the website is really cool. So like it's all like spy type.
Thanks, Julian Castrita.
Oh, all right. There's a good shout out.
He's our third partner in this.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's a graphic designer. I've known him since sophomore year of college, and so all the designs, websites, he did all that stuff.
I thought it was really cool when I went onto the website. It's like so
Yeah.
like it's secret information and things like that.
I've definitely received feedback from people that have come into the tasting room and said, we just Google searched, Paso wineries, or maybe narrowed it down to downtown Paso wineries. And they were just going through everyone's website and they said, we went to your website and we said, we absolutely have to go here. And they searched us out. And obviously, coming down the alley is a little bit difficult to find us on foot. And, we've had people come in and just say, man, your guys' website is so different than anybody else's. We just had to see what it was all about. So I think it's a very important part of our brand as well.
Yeah, I think it's great. So now
We're not paying you anymore, Julian.
I'll support it, Julian. All right. So let's talk about the origin stories. So Trevor, how about you? How did you met at Eberle? You both met at Eberle?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chris had been there for a few years already.
We had similar interests, drinking.
Yes,
There you go.
yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in Oxnard, Ventura area, and I went to school in Riverside, and then moved up to Paso after college. My family, we'd been coming up here since I was younger. We had a vacation home at Lake Nacimiento, so that's kind of like how our family made it this direction. So in college, my parents kind of like semi-retired, was working part-time, and decided to move up here full-time. So they bought a new house up here, and when I graduated from college, it was a nice recession in 2008, and I couldn't find a job down south, and not that I wanted to stay in Riverside either. So I essentially moved back home, but my home hadn't moved from Oxnard up to here. So moved back in with my parents for a while. I was looking for a job. I tried really hard all summer looking for a job, even though I maybe was on the lake water skiing every day. And I started at Eberle actually as a temp. I was just looking for any kind of accounting or finance type position, and at the time Eberle's accountant was on maternity leave, and she had gone on like an early maternity leave, I think some mild complications with pregnancy, and so she was going to be gone for at least 6 to 8 months. And so they needed somebody to come in at least for, close to a year. And so I signed up through it was pretty much a temp agency in town that made the placement. And so that's kind of how I started there and met Chris and all the other crew. And it was, my first job out of college. So, I was very green and fresh and new and everything. And I think we made friends pretty quickly, especially after he found out I lived on the lake and had access to a boat. And
it was more the ping pong table at his parents' house.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
His
dad has lots of toys.
Yeah.
True ping pong or beer pong?
Oh no, we played true ping pong.
Both.
Yeah. I think the beer pong. I think we played on another apparatus during those days.
Cheaper.
Yeah,
table.
something that could get wet and disgusting and gross. Yeah. And so after starting Eberle, the accountant that I was replacing for that time being said, hey, I don't want to come back. I want to stay home with my kid and raise a kid.
Yes.
And then I was offered a job full time. And so pretty much been there ever since. I did do 2 years at another winery here in town when Gary Eberle kind of lost the winery in a big hostile takeover, shakeup. So I kind of left during that time. And then that was when Chris came back to town and Gary brought me back in. So we kind of a similar path in the sense like he started at Eberle a little bit before me. I started at Eberle and he left and traveled the world and did a lot more fun things. And then I stayed there the whole time and left for a short stint and went like a mile and a half down the road.
So I went
At least
to
you left for
I left for a little bit.
Australia, right? You were in Australia?
Yeah.
So Australia, Lake Nacimiento.
Not quite staying.
Culturally, it's not that different.
So what about your background? Was it always, I'm going to do wine?
No. So I was born in Whittier, California.
I am a poet. I graduated from Whittier.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. I didn't know that. No idea. I moved away from there when I was 7.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I can remember of Whittier is that Richard Nixon went there.
Yes.
Which also is a word he used during the Cold War was détente to refer to Russia and the U.S.'s relationship anyways.
Yes.
So we left after the Whittier Narrows earthquake, which I think was 87.
87, because I was a freshman.
Okay.
And I was in the dorm that used to be the maternity wing. And there used to be ghost stories that there were ghosts in there. So there I am, freshman year, and the mirror starts going back and forth. And I'm like, there are ghosts! There are ghosts! Little did I know, what did I do? Go right to the window to go look at everything shaking outside.
The safest place to be.
All right, so I'm sorry. You left Whittier very early.
I remember the earthquake. I was watching Fraggle Rock, and my mom grabbed me off the couch and went under there's an archway in the hallway, and we just kind of stood there, my mom, myself, and my little sister, and it looks like the whole house is gonna come down, and the chimney actually did come down, but and then I slept 3 nights under the dining room table. There was 3 days of aftershocks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty wild, and there were some big ones in there. Yeah. So then after that, my parents were like, "You're getting the hell out. We're done with this." So then we moved up near Chico, California, and we were there for another 7 years. And then we moved to Modesto, California, Central Valley. Did my high school years there, then went to Cal Poly.
Oh.
And so my mom managed restaurants most of her career. So at 13, I was washing dishes, I was waiting tables. By the time I could serve wine, which I think back then was 18.
Yeah, I think it still is now, as long as it's an established eatery.
Yeah,
Did you just not take the RBC class?
He has not yet taken his
I refuse. I
You
refuse.
can strike that from the record.
I refuse.
He has taken it. He's just forgotten
State's not
everything
going to
there
mandate
is.
me to jack. Anyways, so when I was going to Cal Poly, I was working at Hoppy's, which is at the time was the best restaurant on the Central Coast, hands down. And Chef Hoppy, he was trained at Hyde Park, New York.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. And he had a wine list of 2,000 bottles. There was a cellar underneath the restaurant. It was in Cayucas, so it was at the old way station. Really beautiful spot. And then so working there, working the bar, working tables, you meet winemakers, you drink good wine, and so at the time I was ag business. Watch that tail. I was ag business in viticulture, and in 2005 I did a harvest at Claiborne and Churchill, and then after that I don't know if I was hooked because I spent most of that harvest just washing stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the work, punch downs and like the grunt work of it. I mean, that harvest, I think everyone was stung like 17 times by bees, and somehow I never got stung. So I was like, okay.
Foreshadowing of
Yeah, exactly. This is something. And so I liked it enough to like keep going. And then I graduated the next year from Cal Poly, and then got a job with Eberle as a cellar rat, and then worked 2 years, moved up to assistant winemaker. And in 2009, I decided to go travel and work abroad. And I mean, before then, I'd never been outside of the States. I've been in Mexico, and my first job was in South Africa. So it was a pretty big change. And then, so I went to South Africa, New Zealand, Germany, straight.
Wow.
Spent about 4 months in South Africa, 6 months in New Zealand, and almost 6 months in Germany. And then I came home for about a month to say hello to everyone. Then off to Australia, Margaret River, Western Australia, and met my future wife there. And then we came back to the States to do a harvest in Sonoma at Dumal, up in Windsor. Then, let's see, that was 2011, I think? Right. So 2011, I mean, we were still coming out of the recession, so jobs were still pretty tough to come by. And so with us, we'd only been together for, Tessa and I, we'd only been together for maybe 9 or 10 months. And so we had to either get married if she wanted to stay, or we can go back to Australia on a partner visa, which was much easier. So we decided to do that. So I went back. The visa was approved before I went to France to do harvest, and she came over. Then we went back to Australia, and then I was there for another 4 years, and then Gary Eberle called me in 2015 to come back and be his winemaker.
Wow.
So within 3 weeks, I quit my job, left my future wife, which she came eventually. And,
It was a test.
It was a test.
It was a test to see if she truly loved you.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna leave you here. Set it free if it comes back.
Back.
If it truly loves you, yeah.
She came back, and I arrived in Paso 2 weeks before harvest started.
Wow. I went right to work.
Right to work.
Right to work.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the story.
Well, that's pretty impressive, getting a phone call.
Well, it was a Facebook message.
Oh, okay.
I'd imagine Gary wouldn't be awake during the times that you would be awake. But the
No,
time
we had
difference is pretty far, yeah.
15 hours.
Oof.
So we had when we finally talked on the phone, it was like, I think it was my morning
Morning,
and
night.
it was yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There's like some, because I've interviewed Australia. There's like that period
window. Yeah.
where
You got about
it's
3
not
hours.
too late. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
too late for them, or not too early for them, and not too late for you.
Yeah.
Type thing.
But most-
it's a very small window.
Yeah.
But most Aussies are on the East Coast. The West Coast is a little further behind.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he messaged me, asked me what I was doing with my life, sort of thing. Just like,
Out of the blue.
you're kind of fishing. So what's going on here? And that's when I called Jimmy, one of our friends who had also worked at Eberle. Like, man, what's going on with something going on with Gary in the winery? He's like, oh yeah, well this whole thing happened with the takeover. Now it looks like he might be getting it back. I had no idea this had happened, so I kind of figured at that point he was looking for a winemaker.
And you're like, all right, we can talk. All good.
Like, yeah, let's do it.
But it always intrigues me how people can do that. Like, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to go to another country and work a harvest. Like, and I think it's, I don't know because I've never done it, but I would think now it's a little bit easier because of how small the world is with the internet or whatever.
Sure.
But,
Travel, yeah.
but back then, and not that that's so long ago, but there was a difference. Like, how do you find those jobs? How do you willingly say, I don't really know what I'm getting into, but I'm gonna go.
Well, I think in the end you just do it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Fly back, I guess. right?
it's going to be an experience either way. But when I went to South Africa, I had already had my job lined up in New Zealand. So like, even if it totally failed, like, I'm on to the next place. But I had met the guy that I worked for, Carl Schultz, fantastic winemaker at Hardenberg Estate in Stellenbosch. I met him like 2 years before at Eberle. He was touring California. And I messaged him, and I was like, hey man, I've got a job at another winery. What do you think of this place? He's like, oh yeah, it's pretty good, but come work for me. Right? So it couldn't have ended up that bad. Like I got a really good start with people I knew, sort of, in the first place, and then going out to New Zealand. Like New Zealand was such an easy sort of place to travel, and everyone's pretty welcoming and nice, and you can't really go wrong there. Germany was fun as well, and it's a little harder. Like I have a German passport, so if I didn't, it would have been very difficult as an American to go through the whole process to get a job there. So it's easy for me, and it was out of school, so also what could go wrong.
Right.
Do you speak German?
Not really. I took 3 years. I took 3 years in high school. My dad's actually from Germany.
Oh, okay.
But growing up, they spoke mostly English in the house. When I was around my grandparents, they would speak German. But when I was there for by the time a month rolled around, I could understand most conversations, but I was still a little hesitant to speak.
Right.
I just mostly listened. But everyone spoke English, almost everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing. Americans, we expect everybody to speak English.
Yeah.
We'll go to their country and expect them to speak our language.
Well, it's not I tried, and
Right.
so when I try to speak German, they're like, oh, no, it's
No,
okay.
just go
We'll
English.
speak English.
Just go English. It's all right.
Yeah,
It's all
fine,
right.
I want to practice.
All right, so we are at Eberle. You guys are both at Eberle, and you're like, I want to start my own label. So how do you go to, how does that happen? Are you using?
The big man wasn't too keen on the idea.
That took some lunch meetings, I think.
We
maybe
took it to a
at
nice
least
lunch
3 or 4.
at Bistro
No,
Laurent's.
I think we went to Bistro twice.
Did we?
Maybe.
Must have. I mean that was.
He's a smart man. Why agree on the first time if I could get a second round out of it?
Well, you can get a free lunch whenever you want.
Exactly. Either way.
It was good for us because we got a nice lunch.
Either way, when I pulled out my credit card, it was the Eberle credit card that I used to pay for everything. So,
and I'm pretty sure he handed the receipt straight to me and said, that's on you. That's on it.
There you go. No, it took some convincing, and I think Gary kind of came to the realization that not that we would leave because he wouldn't allow us to do this, but he thought that we might be a little hissy or sort of
Little upset.
begrudged or whatever.
Disgruntled.
So he was like, okay, you guys can do it. Keep your production low, keep it out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So
I think, that was his main reservation, was that if we were to become successful quickly, that we would take that and say, thanks for all the years, but see you later, we got our own thing going now, and we're fine. And that was never our intention with it. Yes, it would be great if we were making that much money where we could make that decision if we wanted to. Obviously, opening 2.5 months before the pandemic hit, pretty much threw that right out the window, but I think even if we were in that spot, that wasn't really what we were going for with the brand, right? It was to be in addition to our regular jobs. We both have houses and mortgages and car payments, and
California's not cheap.
It's not cheap to live here. My wife's a teacher. She makes $0. I'm sure anybody that's in education can tell you that. And she left a very lucrative job in biotech to become a teacher. And so, that kind of is in the back of your head of what else can we do to make a little extra money to supplement that income? And luckily, we don't have kids like Chris and Tessa do, and so our expenses aren't as crazy. But I mean, we moved a couple years ago, and our mortgage quadrupled from what it was before, and that's just the nature of living in
and
California.
a much smaller house.
Oh, exactly, yeah. And so I think with that in mind, our idea with if we did have success with the brand, it was to replace that income. And his wife Tessa was working at Halter Ranch, and then after the kids came, she was not working full time there, and it was like, well, man, what do we do here? What do we do to make up that income? And I think we were both on the same page with that of, hey, this can be a good way to do it. And obviously that curveball of COVID definitely shook things up quite a bit. We were hoping to have success a little bit quicker than we are, and we were hoping to have this place staffed a little bit easier, and obviously we all know staffing is
Yes.
so insanely hard.
It's so easy to find somebody who wants to work these days.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of our other guys that was working for us, he was moving back east, and he wasn't supposed to leave until November. He ended up leaving last weekend.
Oh.
And somebody that he had lined up to replace him, she can't do it now, and so it's just last night. So she texted me last night, and now I do have one other person that could possibly.
You heard it first here.
It's just one of those things where.
Does anybody need a job?
Yeah, if you need a job, we need people. But
tips are pretty good.
So that just ends up with us being in here a lot more often than we had hoped for. So it'd be nice if we could get this place staffed and see that growth continue to go as well. And I'm talking about that being Gary's concern or worry about it. It's never
not
been
an issue.
our intention and our issue. And so I wish that he really saw that if Detente was uber successful, that's just going to bring up Eberle as well. It's the same winemaker. He owns this brand. He's the winemaker at Eberle. If Detente has success, that means Eberle has even more success than it already does. So.
It doesn't necessarily work in the other direction.
No, and unfortunately it doesn't. Yeah,
Well, I do believe
Detente
some
doesn't quite
winemaker
have
sitting
much
right here
success.
just won Best of Show in San Joaquin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small competition, so
It's still Best of Show.
That's
baby.
true. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Still Best
Yeah,
of
too
Show.
bad it doesn't work the other way.
It doesn't really,
right?
it doesn't.
Yeah, Eberle gets Best of Show, but Detente gets nothing.
Yeah.
But if Detente got a Best of Show, I'm sure Eberle would see some residual for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think creating Detente was for sure to get some extra income, but also I never started my own business, so I never built up a brand. I'd never done any of that kind of stuff that I kind of trained for and learned in school and never really applied it. So it was also, for me, it was a lot of that as well.
And so, back 2020 pre-pandemic, what did you start with? What wine did you start with?
The Margot Pinot, which is named after my daughter.
Oh, okay.
This one here.
That's enough. Oh, the word search.
So she was born in 2017, and that was our first vintage. So, we thought it was fitting to name a wine after her, and Margot and Pinot goes together, rhymes pretty well. And then the other one was the classified, which was we had a half barrel of Grenache, and we had a half barrel of Pinot left over. We're like, they're pretty similar. Let's just throw it together. And turned out to be pretty damn good.
Phenomenal.
And I dare anyone to go find a Grenache Pinot blend. You won't find it unless you come to us.
So there you go. You've got to come here. So that is awesome. And again, the labels are so cool. I mean, there's so much cleverness behind everything about the winery.
I think it's hard these days to come up with a name, to come up with labels, to do branding. It almost feels like everything's been done. And if you do come up with a good idea, crap, someone already has it,
Right.
or whatever. So I think we definitely have one of the more creative labels and branding in Paso from what I've seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're super proud of that for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think it's that top to bottom, that continuity between the idea behind the brand that goes into the labels. It's not just hey, this label's different because it's artsy. That's great that it's creative because somebody is an artist and just has this beautiful idea of watercolor expression on it. That's beautiful in its own sense. But when we look at our labels and we talk with Julian, we have the idea of, well, why do we want this label to look like that? Well, it's because this part of the brand, it fits within the whole Cold War aspect, the East versus West aspect, it has to draw from something like that. And I think that's something that we do a lot better than even some of the more creative brands around the area.
And it's definitely something that Julian's really good at is, we'll come up with an idea for a label. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because of this. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, why? And he'll tell us, and then often he makes a lot of sense. And so, that's his job. He does this all day long. And so, to make everything cohesive, he was a big part of that.
Oh, huge. Yeah. And it's one thing for us, I'm I'm not very artistic, but I could see something in my head of like, hey, this would be really cool, but I don't even know how to like explain what that would look like, and we would give him just like the most vague base of like an idea, and then he'd come up with this, and we're like, oh yeah, that's exactly
That's
what
what I wanted.
That is exactly what I
exactly what
meant.
I knew we were doing. Yeah.
Well, for instance, like the Pinot label, the
Word search.
the word search. But
The
it's not
Enigma Code.
Enigma Code. I think it was like 2 days before we were going to go to print the bottles.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like my original idea. Here's this one. And actually, none of us liked the original, but it was all that we had. And then he gave that to us like 2 nights before, and we were all like, yes, that's it. And then so we had to change everything.
Yeah.
So the
Luckily
letters,
that was-
so you can see that the Margot is like bold, so that's how the spelling is. But are the other letters just complete random?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or is there
they were a
any
little
other
too
meaning?
random on our first print because there was words like, people thought it was a word search, and then came up with
Well,
things
that's what
like,
I was like. Oh, it's a
it
word
says-
search. That's Margot.
And there were some words in there that probably shouldn't have been touching together. I don't remember. There was one thing like butt. I think there was,
Yeah,
I think
it wasn't
BTT
anything too
was in
bad. Yeah, it wasn't too bold.
And so now Julian makes sure like he'll look through and make sure nothing is like spells anything weird or whatever.
So it's not a word search. What did you call it?
Enigma Code.
Okay, so what is an Enigma Code?
It's something they used in World War II to send messages. And I think originally, no. The Enigma Code was something they used to decipher messages that the Germans were using.
Yeah, the Germans were using.
So the Enigma Code is what they used to crack the.
So it was like this is a Rosetta Stone for countries.
What was the movie
Yes.
with Benedict Cumberbatch?
No, not Beautiful.
He was the one that cracked the code. I forgot the name of that movie. It's called.
Probably know that.
I should know that, but I forgot. It's a great movie. If you could find it somewhere.
Keira
Google
Knightley's
it.
in it.
Yeah.
We'll think of it after.
So
the
that we just recently went to Hawaii, and so at Pearl Harbor, there's that museum that talks you through, and that you can play with the code.
Ah, okay.
It was like one of the hands-on things for the kids that, of course, I was playing with, but.
Well, it's like if you took that and put it on something flat. I mean, that's kind of
what that is.
what it would look like.
See, everything is all clever. All right, so let's talk more wine here.
Okay.
So Western Block.
Ooh, I should probably get a cold one. Oh, it's good.
Western Block. Talk about this guy.
So that is what vintage is that?
It's
2020.
2020. So that is a field blend, meaning that we picked it all together all at once. So the varieties in there are Grenache, Syrah, Graciano. That is from the Colburn Vineyard, and he planted us specifically.
Was it Mourvèdre?
Yes. So we were a part of the whole Mourvèdre debacle, but we did have the opportunity to say, no, we'll wait for the Mourvèdre, but it would have been another year, and so that would have been a year without production. And I've worked with Graciano before in
I
Western
love it.
Australia, and I really loved it as well. And it's like, nah, leave it planted. We'll take it. It's fine.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
That's
And,
a little character to Paso, because
yeah.
there's not enough here.
Seriously.
It's something to talk about. Yeah.
So yeah, field blend. It's our big boy wine. Like all of our wines are pretty balanced. Lower alcohols. This one is it's our big guy.
It's still quite balanced though on the finish.
Definitely
especially
balanced.
compared to like if you want to talk about like a Paso big boy.
Sure.
This still ain't hitting.
But
all
this
the
is our big
guys.
boy.
This is ours
Big
though
boy.
for sure.
14.9% alcohol. About 10 months in barrel. I don't think I used any new oak on this one. Pretty big tannin. And what I got double gold from.
Double gold at Central Coast, gold at Orange County Fair, and I think I want to say on September 12th we can release that it got a 94 from Wine Enthusiasts. But
Oh, wow.
if this podcast just happens to go out before then, I just caveat we were gonna wait until then before we said it.
It's my fault. It got released too early. So congrats, 94. Very nice.
Yeah,
very
not
nice.
bad.
Very nice.
So the counterpart, there's 4 wines that have kind of their counterparts. There's the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc, which is right here. We spell Bloc, B-L-O-C. You got your east and west here, and on there that's a map of Paso Robles. In the red, this is the east side, in the red, and the blue is the west side.
The west side.
And for me, I like my Rhones from the west side. So the Colbert Vineyard is in the Adelaide district, and he planted us Syrah Graciano specifically for Detente and Pedro Jimenez, which we have the largest planting of Pedro in the United States.
I didn't even know there was Pedro here.
There is
now.
Yeah. And actually, there's quite a bit out there. I was out there today looking at the vineyard, and I was like, that's a lot of Pedro. What am I do with all this?
Let me see. What can I start doing?
Well, we're gonna make a fortified.
Okay.
It's not gonna be exactly a sherry, but it's gonna be probably.
Well, legally, I can't.
Well, it's not. It's not even gonna be.
We don't want to
sherry
get anything else in
style.
trouble.
It's gonna be much higher sugar. Alcohol is gonna be about 17.5%. It's a style very popular in the Swan Valley, Western Australia. And I've done a few of these wines, similar wines for Eberle. I did a Muscat liqueur, Viognier liqueur, and Verdelho liqueur.
Verdelho was the first.
Verdelho was the first. One of those bottles exploded recently.
Yeah. Okay.
Adds a
It is
little
left me
fun.
sad. Unfiltered, unfined. Like you can't really.
Right.
You gotta be careful.
Fire it back up.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about the Eastern versus the Western wines or whatever, you talked about the Colburn vineyard. What other vineyards are you getting your fruit from?
So within Paso Robles, we just have two vineyards, Colburn on the west side, Adelaide district, and then Stillwaters in the El Pomar district, and that's where we get all our Bordeaux. So Sauvignon Blanc, Cab Merlot, and then we're gonna do a little bit of Semillon this year, which is technically on the west side, but it's a really small percentage of the blend. We're going to do a SBS, so Sauv Blanc Semillon blend, which is very popular in Margaret River, and I love that blend, and so I've been wanting to do it for a while. Originally, that's what I wanted the Sauv Blanc to be, but we couldn't find any Semillon until recently.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of like coming kind of back full circle a little bit on wanting to start this brand compared to just working at Eberle being a winemaker, is that Chris is able to do something like this where, at Eberle we've been around for over 40 years, and we do quite a few different SKUs there, probably too many, but you can't just keep adding more, especially whites. We've already got 3 dry whites, and plus
6 different white varieties.
Yeah.
7. But then within there, some years I'll do a liqueur, I'll do a cane cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like having Eberle kind of, you're stuck in your ways a bit there, right? Of the customers expect, Chardonnay being a white rum blend. If you branch out with something like that, are you going to replace something that's already on the mainstay list? And it's kind of hard to do. So with Detente, Chris can come up with these, fun different blends, or hey, I want to work with this fruit that we don't normally get to work with, and some of that is, Gary Eberle is a hard line in the sand that all fruit must be Paso Robles 88 fruit. Some things don't grow phenomenally well in Paso. That's, we have our varieties that do grow very well here, but things like Pinot, they don't grow great here. There's some, planted throughout, but it's not what Paso's known for, right? And so, that's something Chris can go around, and we can find different vineyards outside the area and play around with some different climates, different fruit.
You said that very delicately. That was nice.
You did that beautifully.
There are people who have Pinot here. It's.
Oh, I'm not saying. There's some Paso Pinot out there. I think is very good. I just
Sure.
In terms of how we make our Pinot of that cool climate, delicate style, I think isn't showcased in Paso as much as we like to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just a bit bigger. It's a bit more fruit bomb, and I just. There's nothing wrong with that.
You said it in a way that you're not going to hurt anyone's feelings.
I hope not.
Well, when we began with Chenin Blanc, right? That's one of those varieties that is grown in Paso, and the way we explain it is, to our palate, it's not Chenin for us. There's wonderful Chenin out there in Paso, and people do a great job with it in Paso, but we prefer a different type of Chenin. So we went to Clarksburg,
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
no, absolutely.
Right.
How did you find out about Clarksburg Chenin Blanc? Because they do great Chenin Blanc from there.
It's called drinking a lot of Chenin.
Well, okay, all right, fair enough. Fair
That's
enough.
Research.
R&D.
Research,
R&D.
yes, absolutely,
Fair enough.
absolutely. But we had gone there, and after we contracted there, there was a podcast with Gary on it, and he was
Gary
like,
Eberle?
Yep.
Ah.
And he was like, you can grow a lot of stuff in Paso, but Chenin, no, I take that back, but not Chenin.
Yeah, and I was like, he'll tell the same story about he planted Chenin when he was at Estrella back in '76 or whatever, and he's like, that's the worst mistake I ever made is planting Chenin in Paso Robles. Yeah.
But I always do say there is some wineries here who do make a very
No, sure,
nice Chenin.
sure.
There's very good Chenin. It's just
So within Paso, we have those two vineyards, and
Stillwaters is a great. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe.
No, he's fine. Love you.
I hear he's not
Love
a
you,
great
big guy.
fisherman. I hear he's not a great fisherman though.
No.
He just got his commercial fishing license, so now he can sell his catch of the day at the winery.
Oh wow!
So I think he's shifted focus maybe away from the wine a little too much into his.
Well, now that
hobby.
he got a new winemaker, and he's like, oh yeah, he does everything. I don't have to do anything. He's gonna go fish during harvest. Well, there'll be times that it's like, we're gonna pick the next morning or something. I'll call Paul. Hey man, we're gonna drop in. Great, I'm out fishing. Hey, like you're in the ocean, man. Like, we're gonna pick tomorrow morning. Yeah, no, we're fine.
We're fine. All good. All good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So the classified Grenache Pinot, this is saying 26% Pinot, and you're doing it as a field blend. So, like, can you just explain to listeners and viewers, like how you go about working a field blend? So you already said that a field blend is you're harvesting at the same time it goes together, but how do you actually process that if it's two different?
So it's so the Western Block is a field blend.
I'm sorry.
This is just a straight up blend.
Oh, okay.
This is also a field blend. So this is from the same vineyard, the Rosé and the Western Block.
Oh, okay.
Block. So the Rosé is actually quite easy. Like if you have fruit that's a little underripe, no big deal. So I just kind of take, the average of the 3 blocks and then try and pick the perfect day. When it comes to the field blend of the Western Block, I gotta wait that out a little bit longer. So I've got Graciano at the bottom of the hill, then we've got Syrah, then we've got Grenache. And so I'm typically picking the Grenache closest to the Syrah and Graciano. And luckily, they're not too far off. Like if I picked all of them individually, they'd probably be within less than a week.
Oh, okay.
So, we just got lucky that it all works out that way. But I can wait on the Grenache. Thick skins, it's fine. The Syrah, not so much because the birds like to eat that. So I'm kind of looking at the Grenache as my pick point.
Okay.
And then the Graciano's got great acid, but the flavors might not be there. So I'm mostly waiting on the Graciano and the Syrah, but the Syrah is my main one, and pick it all together and hope for the best.
Hope for the best. And so, what do you think each of those varietals do to that wine?
Oh, that's pretty easy. Grenache, that's your aromatics. Syrah's got the aromatics too, but it adds a little more of that meatiness. And the Syrah's also kind of a backbone for me. The Graciano's massive color and acid. So really, all of those 3 varieties really balance each other out pretty well.
Fantastic. All right, and then your Pinot you had mentioned is actually from Santa Barbara.
This particular, the Margot Pinot here is from Santa Maria.
Santa Maria.
Solomon Hills.
I don't read a website well.
Well, it changes every year.
You're
okay.
You're also
Or it
not
has.
wrong though, because
Okay.
the classified has Pinot from Santa Barbara.
Okay.
So you probably read
Thanks
the
for
classified,
covering me.
But yeah, no, the Margot Pinot, is Solomon Hills Vineyard in Santa Maria. We used to get our Pinot from Stolo Vineyard over in Cambria. The fruit was phenomenal.
Great. Great.
They've been getting bigger and more popular, and we used to get 1.5, 2 tons from them. And towards the end of that life cycle, they were getting big enough where they just said, hey, you know, we can't end up selling any of our fruit anymore. And we need to take it all. We were pretty bummed about that because it was a great source. You know, I mean, it wasn't super cheap, but the quality we got was incredible. And you know,
they weren't organic, but they were pretty close to it.
Yeah. And they were great people to work with. So since then, we've pretty much jumped around for a while. We went to Solomon Hills in Santa Maria. The 20 Pinot is from Mun's Vineyard up in Santa Cruz Mountains.
Oh, okay.
I love Pinot from Santa Cruz Mountains.
Yeah. And then
Fantastic.
2021 was from our new Slow Coast Vineyard, which we should be able to get consistently. And it's as close physically to Stolo as we could probably get.
Closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that drive into the valley and back up takes quite a while.
Yeah.
You can see the ocean from the vineyard we get our Pinot from now. It's pretty amazing.
It's beautiful.
views.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is 100% organic, although it's not certified. I think they're going for the certification.
It takes about 3 or 4 years, something like that.
It takes a while, yeah. But we did make it in 2020, but the fruit was so heavily affected by smoke that we couldn't use it. So 21 will be our first vintage. We'll continue making Pinot from that vineyard from here on out, and that'll be the Margot label.
Well, what we were lucky with too is 21 being our first vintage from that La Manzanita vineyard is they just got accredited for the Slow Coast AVA. So we were able, like right before we went to go to bottle it, it was like, oh, they got approved. We could put it on there and we could get label approval for it. And it's awesome to have that, you know, probably one of the first in bottle with that label on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Now, I think you had another high score just recently, right?
Rosé, 93 points in Wine Enthusiast. We can say that legally. We've passed our quarantine time of, this one's coming out, I think, in the October issue, and then that Western Block Score's coming out in the November issue. So.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know there was a quarantine thing. As soon as they send me that email, I'm on social media.
I technically don't think
I don't think
meant to do that.
anybody really like heeds.
But they're not
too
gonna
much,
check up
but
on you
yeah.
guys.
Yeah, they probably don't.
Yeah.
Don't care too much about it.
I get
It's
that
a
email.
small little blurb in the
Yeah.
email that's a like.
Oh,
a,
is it?
It's like a little asterisk.
Oh,
but,
okay.
yeah,
I see the email, my
I'll make a
hand's
check
like,
on
oh no, and I'm like, woohoo! Social media.
But like 93 on a rosé, I was like, oh.
That's pretty impressive.
I was like, oh, that's okay. But then you go to look at all the scores for rosé throughout the year. The highest score they gave was a 94. So it's
right.
like, oh wait, that is pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good,
so
yeah.
there-
Gold and what?
There's
experience
something
or
against rosé
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
giving those 98s or 96 or whatever. They
Which
just,
is kind of crazy because
Yeah.
rosé is a far more technical wine than all the other still wines. So I think it definitely deserves its credit.
One, its popularity
93
increased
is
so much,
huge.
too.
Yeah, that as
Yeah.
well.
That is huge. That is huge. And then, so I also saw that you have another kind of label, this series 3, which is
The experimental series. Yeah.
yes, the experimental.
So every year, to make things kind of fun for our club members and stuff, we do an experimental series. This is the third one. So it's a Torrontés made in a Vino Verde style.
Oh,
So it's spritzy, it's low alcohol, the bottle says 12, but it's really like 11.6 or 8 or something like that. Nice acid, super refreshing wine. First experimental series.
Vegas.
The first experimental series was
Montepulciano.
Oh, I just came back from Abruzzo.
Stiletto Vineyard.
Montepulciano del Abruzzo or
Ah.
Montepulciano?
Well, when I was in Germany, I went to Trentino, and I was there for like 2 weeks, and most of the table wines were Montepulcianos. It's so good. And I was like, if I ever get to make this, I'm going to do it. And we found some at Stiletto Vineyard in San Benito, which is organic.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing, when I was making this wine, I would actually, I'd get in the bin and I'd just, I'd stomp it, I'd swim around in it, and that's how I do my punch downs and stuff. It had this smell, I couldn't figure it out. It was like unlike anything I'd ever smelled before. It was like curry. it finally like occurred to me. It's like, this smells like curry. I love curry. I love Indian food.
Yeah.
And you can actually like, it's not the main aroma in the wine, but it's like if I say curry to you and you're like, oh my god, yes, it's in there.
Right.
So I still love that wine. I think most of our, especially our Cellar Club,
Oh man, one of our most popular.
love it. So I'm probably gonna have to make it again. And we tried to get some more fruit from them this last
they're
year.
sold out.
Super sold out.
Well, you know, when it's something good, it goes quickly, right?
Yeah, and it was like 13.5% or 13% alcohol.
Yeah, 13.5, 13.3, something like that.
Wow.
It was good. And then the second one was a carbonic maceration Grenache,
Oh, nice.
and that sold pretty well.
Yeah, I think we just sold out a couple months ago of it.
Yeah.
All
And so we had to do a wipe, and so we found some Torontes, and I'd never worked with it before, but I've tried many of them. And, the Vino Verde style wasn't actually on purpose. The damn fruit just wouldn't ripen. And so I think it only got up to like 20 breaks, and it had been sitting at 20 for like 3 weeks. And I was like, let's just pick it. And you know, as I was fermenting it, I was still unsure what I was going to do with it. and then so across the street, Robert Hall, they make a Vino Verde style called what's it called? Have you had it?
I don't think so.
It's Paso Verde. I think it's what it's called.
Oh, nice.
Amanda, one of the winemakers over there,
Right.
that was her idea. She makes a fantastic Vino Verde style wine. And I was like, we're gonna copy you. And yeah, there it is.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So tell us where people can find you. First on social media.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely on Instagram. Tessa runs our Instagram.
Okay.
She does an amazing job. You know, we try to be a little bit different as well. Same with our branding and our website and our shtick. You know, we don't want to just take all the same pictures as everybody else. We like to do some fun things. And so Instagram, we're just at Detente Wines. And website's detentewines.com. Go check out our fun website and you can order there. And then our tasting room is right in the heart of downtown Paso. So
Down Norma's Alley.
Yeah. If you could smell barbecue, follow your nose to Jeffrey's, walk through the restaurant towards the back, and we'll be right here in the corner waiting for you.
You can have like a toucan, like, you know, like Toucan Sam for follow your nose. It always knows. Well, thank you very much. It was awesome talking to you. And for those of you who are listening, it is DETENTE is how it is spelled. So thank you very much, and I wish you guys the best of luck because, you know, your wines are awesome, you know, so we know it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to see if I can steal a tasting room next to you.
Yeah.
We need more neighbors down the alley.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thanks, you
Lori.
very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so other than Vegas barking,
It's a good guard dog.
Oh yeah, that was one take. Boom.
Yeah.
yeah, he was somebody probably just came by the door or whatever. Oh,